Some mornings still start the same. Flip on the kettle, wait for the slow blue light, tell myself to breathe before the day starts chewing on me. It's Bella's kettle. Cheap steel, dented, one side of the plastic handle melted near the base. She claimed it made better tea for tigers, and I didn't argue. That was her code name for me. I kept it because I never liked replacements. I'm 37 now. I'm Nate Griffin. I live in Brooklyn, and I run export logistics for high-value stones, Antwerp, Dubai, Hong Kong. Most guys in my field like sleek machines and fast flights. I trust old gear and quiet mornings. That day, I'd just come back from a brutal stretch, 7 days of fire drills trying to unfreeze a wire from Dubai. I was running on coffee and leftover adrenaline. I was already late, shoes in hand, tie in my mouth when I spotted it. A white envelope in the lobby mail slot. No stamp. No return address. Just 7 words in black ink. To my favorite tiger, from your panda. I froze. My pulse thudded like a warning bell. That was our thing, our names. No one else knew them. We'd whisper them on late nights in Clifton, joking, half asleep. Bella never posted them anywhere. I certainly didn't. Quick note. Before we continue, share in the comments which city or country you're listening from. It helps us see where you're tuning in from and figure out the best time to post new stories. Thanks. Now let's get into it. Mrs. Alvarez, I said, half yelling down the hallway. Did anyone drop off mail this morning? She peeked out of the side office, still tucking in her shirt. I was in the bathroom. I didn't see anyone, Mr. Griffin. Could have been anyone with the door code. I wanted to bark. I didn't. I nodded, took the envelope and went upstairs. I didn't open it right away. I carried it like a live wire, set it on the counter, picked it up, set it down again. My head told me scam. My gut said shut up and listen. In the end, I opened it with one hand, still holding my travel mug in the other. The smell hit me first. Soft, soapy perfume she wore on Sundays when she wasn't working. Clean. Familiar. My stomach clenched. Then the writing. It started like she'd been watching me this whole time. Mentioned the PATH train, our first ride. That night we got locked out of her place in Clifton and had to sleep on her porch swing under a beach towel. It referenced my cufflinks, the ones she used to call dice on a string. Said a sensitive could bridge messages if I played it right. Asked me to write back, leave cash. Said she'd hear me. No name, no proof, but too many details to shrug off. I read it 3 times. Then again. Then tucked it under the kettle like it was some cursed artifact I couldn't throw away. I stood there, arms crossed, staring out at the East River through the kitchen window, my reflection staring back with that same worn-out look I've had since Clifton. And then, like a complete idiot, I said it out loud. If this is you, Panda, forgive me for testing you. I turned back to the counter, slid the letter into a drawer, and made one hard promise to myself. I'd write back, but I'd set traps. Little ones. Deliberate errors. Stuff only she'd know. If it was a game, I'd play it better. If it was real, I owed her that much. I poured my tea, grabbed my brief, and walked out the door like I hadn't just had a ghost ask for money. Back then, months before the letters, she said it without flinching. Unless you can teleport my wallet from Montclair, I'm in trouble. I caught her tone first, tired, half joking, but brittle like glass right before the snap. She stood to the left of the board, hugging a canvas bag like it owed her money. I asked if she needed help. She said she'd already missed 1 shift that week and couldn't afford to miss another. I pulled out my phone, checked the NJ transit board again just to kill the moment, then handed her a one-way to the end of the line. She looked at the ticket, blinked and said, "This where you try for my number and tell me you're a nice guy?" It came out dry as a bone. No flirt, no tilt to the voice, just pure defense. I laughed anyway. "That was awful," I said. "Try again." She cracked a smile, then folded the ticket once before tucking it into her back pocket. "Thanks, Tiger," she muttered, not even looking at me. The name didn't mean anything yet. just a throwaway. We rode together for 3 stops. She had that nervous habit of tapping her nails against the metal pole, tick, 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 like a clock counting down something private. I asked what she did, and she said she arranged flowers and stretched budgets like gum. Peonies and thistle, she told me. The trick is distraction. Bright and spiky distracts from cheap. I told her I moved high-dollar stones through airports and didn't lose sleep unless something bounced. When we hit Secaucus, she stood up, pulled the cord, and turned to me. "You talk like a guy who doesn't get stuck." "Not if I can help it," I said. I handed her a crumpled 20 from my coat and told her not to argue. She argued anyway, then took it with a tight nod and a look that said she hated needing it. A week later I saw her again. Midtown. Greasy burger joint with 2 stools open and one of them already mine. She walked in, recognized me, didn't blink. "What, you stalking me now?" "I live here. This is my territory," I shot back. I gave her the seat. We split fries. She talked about her landlord raising rent and me not knowing how to eat fast food like a local. She missed her direct back to Montclair. I walked her to the track and she yelled over her shoulder, "Call me this time, Tiger!" Right as the doors shut. She meant it. We got into a rhythm. Sundays in Hoboken, Thursday nights in Montclair, sometimes meeting in the middle just to stand on a pier and breathe. I brought her earrings once. She looked at them, smiled too politely, then tucked them back in the box. Said they were pretty, but she didn't like feeling expensive. "Do you know how heavy this bracelet feels on the subway?" she asked once, rubbing the underside of her wrist. "Then take it off," I said. "You don't owe me any show." She did sometimes. She'd wear it on the walk over and pocket it before dinner. I never asked why. Some people keep score. Bella didn't. She just didn't want to owe anything. She got me socks. I know that sounds dumb, but they were good socks. Warm, thick, like she'd actually checked the label and thought about it. And later the kettle, the one I still use. She said it boiled better. For tigers, she joked one night, pouring water like she'd done it 1,000 times. We had this shorthand by then, Tiger and Panda. Dice on a string for my cufflinks. Tuesday roses, when we needed a pick-me-up midweek. Stuff no one else would get, and that's how we liked it. We built it in the margins, stolen hours between work and noise. She hated the city sound, said it made her jaw tight, but she loved train platforms because of how people hugged. There was a night, early January, just past closing at her shop. Cold enough to burn your fingers if you weren't careful. I walked in with a plain ring in my coat pocket. No diamonds, no speech. She was sweeping petals off the floor. She looked up when I said her name. I didn't do a big setup. I just said, "I want you to marry me." She didn't speak right away. She dropped the broom, stepped toward me, and put both hands on my face. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry the way people do in movies. It was quieter than that. Then she said yes. Simple. Like she'd already known. After that, she asked if we could keep it just ours until spring. No announcement, no posts, just something quiet. I said, of course. That was her way. If she didn't want the world in it, it meant it mattered. We set the date for June 18th. Small ceremony. Garden out in Nutley behind a friend's community center. She'd picked out a corner with ivy and stone benches. We were going to have sandwiches, plastic chairs, and probably one drunk uncle on my side. I booked my work travel around it. Antwerp in March, Dubai in April, Hong Kong in May. Tight window, but I told myself I'd be back in time. Everything was locked in. That last night before I flew to Dubai, we sat on her stoop in Clifton. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You're the only thing I don't have to stretch." I didn't answer, just kissed the top of her head and told myself I'd be home before it mattered. But long before that night in Bay Ridge, there was Dubai. I was still in that glass tower on Sheikh Zayed Road when Bella texted she had a cough. I called, heard the rattle in her breath, and told her to get checked out. She said she'd be fine. She had tea and lemon, and work was slow anyway. I should have pushed harder. I should have heard the strain under her voice, but a client moved a meeting up by an hour, and I told myself I'd call her again later. Later didn't happen. 2 weeks passed before I could get home. When the deal finally broke my way and I landed at JFK ahead of schedule, I felt 10 feet tall. I didn't even shower. I grabbed my bag, caught a cab, and told the driver to take the Pulaski Bridge route. I wanted to see her. I wanted to surprise her. I had the ring receipt in my pocket like it mattered. By the time I reached her building in Clifton, the adrenaline was fading. I knocked until my knuckles stung. I called. I listened to the hollow silence on the other side of the door. I called again. I knocked again. My throat tightened in a way I didn't like. Then the older neighbor, the one with the slippers and the apron, cracked her door open and said it the way people talk about rain. "She passed, honey. Pneumonia. I'm so sorry." My ears went hot. The ground tilted sideways. I said, "What? When?" But she already looked sorry she'd spoken. She added that the county had handled it because Bella had no listed family. A friend from the home handled the rest. Service done, paperwork signed, box lowered. All of it finished before I even crossed an ocean. I walked down the street because I couldn't stand still. I walked past the corner store, past the bus stop, past the intersection where we used to meet. Every step felt like trying to breathe through a fist. I ended up at the Red Roof Women's Shelter she'd mentioned once. The door buzzed. A tall woman with sharp eyes opened it just a crack. "Christina Davis?" I asked. Her stare flicked from my suit to my face like she was measuring guilt. Then she said, "You're late," with this cold finality that wiped me out. Before I could speak, she added, "You weren't needed for the funeral," and shut the door in my face. I stood there with my hand still lifted, like maybe she'd open it again. She didn't. 2 days later, I found the burial site, not through family, not through friends, but through a clerk's bored voice on the phone. I wasn't invited, but I went anyway. Some county worker had already covered the thin coffin with dirt. No flowers, no marker, nothing. I stood 100 feet away because that was the rule. I didn't break it. I didn't yell or curse. I didn't drop to my knees like a movie idiot. I just stood there with my hands shaking and my jaw locked. After that, I dismantled myself. It started slow, extra whiskey and coffee, then skipping meals, then more whiskey, then no coffee at all. I stopped sleeping at home and crashed on the floor next to my desk. My assistant covered for me, telling partners I was stuck in transit, which was technically true in the sense that I couldn't move forward or back. One night, I woke up on the carpet with my cheek pressed against a stack of invoices and realized I'd almost missed a customs inspection window. That wasn't me. That was a man falling apart. A buddy from Antwerp, Rick, flew in on a business trip, saw me, and didn't waste time. He drove me to a rehab center on Long Island that didn't care how much money I made, only whether I could stop bleeding inside long enough to stand up straight. I burned whatever savings I hadn't liquefied into alcohol and let them reset my brain. When I walked out weeks later, I was still cracked, but I was functional. And when I'm functional, I work. I tore into my roots, streamlined Antwerp to Basel, shifted my Dubai line to a different distributor. I fired a Jersey City middleman who'd been skimming small amounts that added up to real money. I rebuilt insurance tiers, renegotiated freight costs, and kept my head down. Discipline was the only thing that kept breath in my chest. Grief turned into a hum, constant, low frequency, like a bad light fixture. I lived with it. I made tea in the kettle she'd given me, sometimes touching the handle like I could feel warmth that wasn't there. I didn't date. I didn't celebrate holidays. I didn't buy a Christmas tree because I was tired of dragging something dead outside in January. 6 years slid by like that. I got older, not wiser, just heavier in the face. I worked hotel gyms during holidays and slept short. I convinced myself that routine was enough, until that envelope showed up. The day it landed in my lobby, All the noise I'd buried roared back. I tried to act like it didn't matter, like I was just working a case. But when I got back upstairs, my hands shook so hard I had to set the letter down twice before I opened it. When I read it, part of me wanted to believe. The other part, the side that had scraped itself back from the bottom, knew belief was how you get hurt. So I approached it the way I approach contraband routing or a suspect invoice. I treated it like a job. That night, I grabbed a pen, sat at the kitchen counter, and wrote a letter back. I kept my handwriting tight. I included the cash like they asked, $2,000, counted twice because habits die slow. But I laced the letter with 3 traps. I moved our first kiss to Hoboken instead of Montclair. I flipped who said dice on a string. I rewrote a fight we'd had in January and dropped it in March. If Bella wrote back knowing the original facts, I'd know someone was playing. If she matched my wrong ones, I'd know it was a basic scam. Either way, I'd stop pretending the dead talk to the living. When I was done, I folded everything into a plain envelope, put the bills inside, sealed it, and wrote nothing on the front. No name, no code, no tiger, no panda. I walked to Bay Ridge after dark, found the baseball field, and slipped the envelope under that loose board behind the backstop. I pressed it down with my palm so it wouldn't flutter out. Then I stood, brushed dirt off my hands, and walked away without checking if anyone watched. 4 days in, the envelope was gone. I checked the backstop every night for a week, just to be sure it wasn't a fluke. After a month of silence, I figured it was over. Scam artists took the cash and moved on. I told myself that was a win. Test passed, fire extinguished. But deep down, I was half pissed, half relieved. Then week 7 landed, and there it was again. Same thick envelope in my lobby box, same handwriting across the front. To my tiger, from Panda. No stamp, no smudge, just like the first. I stood there holding it, not breathing. I read it once leaning against the mailroom wall. Again over the sink while my tea went cold. Again in that stiff chair I never sit in near the window, like changing position might change the words. It was detailed, precise. Bella nailed every single trap. She corrected Newark to Clifton, reminded me it was her who coined the dice on a string joke, and pointed out that the Hoboken Pier fight was in April, not March, said I'd had a bad mood that didn't match the rain. Then came the slap. She scolded me for testing her, said she expected better, that she felt the doubt, and that it hurt. That was the moment the illusion cracked. Not because she got the details right, but because real Bella never scolded. She was cautious by nature. Suspicious first, soft later. This version, too smooth, too confident. Bella would have tested me back. This one acted like she'd passed the quiz, and now I owed her an apology. Then the ask, $5,500 for the medium's legal trouble. I read that sentence 3 times. The drop spot was near a closed swim school in Newark, some side street I didn't recognize, but someone local would. I sat there in my kitchen, elbows on the table, letter between my fingers like a confession. Bella never liked Newark after dark. She said it felt itchy, like something in the air was off. That itch started crawling through me again. I still wrote back. I still tucked in the $5,500 in cash, counted it slow, sealed the envelope. Then I waited until Tuesday night, because that's when they'd said to drop it. I parked 2 blocks from the swim school, near a busted speed limit sign, and walked with my collar up. I found the spot they named, between 2 yellow-painted curbs where the brick near the fence was chipped. I slid the envelope into the hollow, packed it in tight, and walked back to my car like I had nothing to hide. Then I waited. 2 hours passed. Cold pizza smell from the back seat. 1 stale protein bar. I sat with my eyes on the rear view, watching every person who walked by like they were carrying secrets. Then she came. Medium build, dark hoodie, fast step. She looked both ways, bent down, popped the exact brick, pulled the envelope, and started counting the cash before she even turned the corner. No hesitation. I knew the face. Took me a second, but I knew it. Christina Davis. The same woman who shut the shelter door in my face. Bella's friend. Same sharp stare, same stance, but now with her fingers frozen mid-count. "Christina," I said, stepping out from the car. She flinched. Her shoulders jerked back like she'd been hit. She turned slowly, stuffed the envelope into her coat, and opened her mouth. "Don't," I cut in. "Just don't. I'm tired. Don't make me drag this out." She looked like she might bolt, then deflated. "Please don't call the cops," she said, voice flat. "Please. I didn't want it to go this far." I stepped closer, keeping my tone steady. "Explain the perfume, the nicknames, the details." Her voice cracked but didn't break. Bella used to tell me things. Not all of it, but enough. I lived with her for almost 2 years before she passed. I heard stories, saw the notes. She made tea with that stupid kettle and talked about you like you were a movie that never ended. I asked about the scent. She said it was some cheap floral blend Bella always wore, and that she found the same bottle online and sprayed it on the envelopes because it helped her feel close. I didn't like that answer, but I believed it. Then she dropped the real story. She had a son, 3 years old. Name was Connor. Heart defect, truncus arteriosus. I didn't know the term, but she explained it fast, like someone who's said it 1,000 times and still hates every syllable. "The meds aren't working right anymore," she said. "Surgery estimates 86 grand. Could hit 112 with rehab. We don't have that kind of money. We don't have anything." I asked about the father. She looked down. "Usher's out of work. He's mixed up with people he shouldn't be. He's trying to fix it, but nothing's sticking." Then she finally said it, like tearing off her own skin. "I hate myself for using her name. I knew you had money. I knew you loved her. And I thought, maybe if it felt like Bella, you'd listen." I didn't hug her. I didn't scream either. I just stood there watching her hands tremble, and I said one thing. "Give me a clean number. No more ghosts. Text me your son's cardiologist name in the morning. If you lie again, we're done." She nodded hard, sniffled once, wiped her nose with her sleeve. I took the envelope back, slid $1,000 out of my coat and handed it to her, bills wrapped in a rubber band. "This gets you through the week. Rent, food, meds, nothing else. Don't show up at my place. Don't write another letter. I'll handle it." She took the money without a word, turned, walked fast, disappeared into the dark. That night I sat at my kitchen table until close to 2 in the morning. The kettle steamed in the corner. I didn't drink the tea. I made a list, because when I can't feel, I operate. Item 1. Call Columbia Presbyterian. Verify the diagnosis. Item 2. Confirm Dr. Patel's credentials. Item 3. Set a call with the bank to pre-clear any large outbound wires. Item 4. Figure out how much room I had left on my Dubai line before I spooked 2 suppliers. Then I sharpened a pencil, wrote Connor at the top of a fresh notepad, and underlined it twice. The next morning, I made the call. Dr. Patel's office picked up on the second ring. Polite voice. Knew Connor. Knew the diagnosis, the treatment plan. Even said they'd been trying to push his date up depending on a cancellation. I gave my name, asked what the balance looked like, and said I'd be handling all invoices moving forward. They didn't argue. Money opens doors. Back on my side, I queued the first wire. 35,000, pulled from a side reserve I normally didn't touch. My bank flagged it in under an hour for pattern adjustment. That's corporate for you're acting different than usual. They'd seen me move 6-figure shipments across borders, but never throw a chunk of change into the American healthcare void without a contract. I put on a clean shirt, got in the car, and drove to Midtown to handle it in person. Sat across from a compliance officer who looked about 25 and over-caffeinated. I laid out the documentation, printed the case summary, showed him Connor's surgical quote, and told him I wasn't buying a racehorse. I was trying to keep a kid breathing. They lifted half the freeze that afternoon. I split the payment across 2 wires and asked for an institutional fund to manage anything future-facing: rehab, medication, imaging. I named it Connor Davis Care A to keep it neat. No cash access. Hospital invoices only. Christina didn't love that. Said she trusted herself more than she trusted systems. I told her I didn't. Not anymore. But it's for Connor, she said. And that's why it's structured, I shot back. He's the line item. Not you. Not me. She didn't fight after that. She texted a picture the next morning. Connor wrapped in a superhero blanket, big brown eyes, and a tired but real smile. I told myself you can fake a lot. That wasn't one of them. She added, I'll pay you back someday, I swear. I replied, then pay it forward, and stop writing letters like a ghost. She sent one word, okay, and stayed quiet for a while after that, which I appreciated. While that storm settled, another one kicked up across the globe. A buyer out of Hong Kong started wobbling, normally solid, 10-year relationship, suddenly getting cagey over a shipment we both knew was clean. At the same time, a Jersey City wholesaler named Darren Cole started sniffing around my junior staff, asking questions, poking at schedules, telling one of my vendors I was winding down and considering moving product through a flagged buyer overseas. My assistant forwarded a rumor from a supplier, said someone hinted I was touching gray market lanes in Dubai. That kind of talk spreads like mold. I locked my systems, moved 3 key clients to voice-only comms, told Antwerp I'd be flying out in 2 weeks to put hands on the table and steady the ship. I slept at the office 2 nights in a row because it was easier than trying to calm myself down in a dark apartment where nobody waited. I could smell the leftover fear from the letter game. It still clung to the corners of the kitchen. Christina kept me posted during all that. She said the meds were stable. The surgery date was finally on the board. She said she was scared and grateful. That's it. No fluff. No guilt. Simple was better. Late one afternoon in March, I wired another $15,000 to Colombia, took a call from Dubai, and stared at the unopened bourbon bottle in my office cabinet for a long minute. I thought about it. Real hard. Then I made tea instead. It tasted like nothing but felt like something. 15 minutes later, someone pounded on my apartment door. Not a knock. A hit. 3 hard slams. Then silence. Then 2 more. Rhythmic. Like they practiced it. "Gas check!" a voice yelled through the wood. My brain clicked. The building had an issue last year. A faulty pilot line. The super was supposed to inspect quarterly. The tone sounded official, irritated. I opened the door. Bad move. 5 men shoved past me in a flash. Boots, caps, tool bags. One brushed my shoulder like I wasn't even there. Another walked straight toward the kitchen without asking. The last one, a tall guy with a limp, waited until I shut the door, then jabbed a thin blade up under my ribs. I didn't scream. Didn't have time. The air went out of me like I'd been unplugged. Heat spread fast, like I'd swallowed fire, and my knees buckled. I hit the floor sideways, vision bouncing. I saw one guy pulling my laptop, another grabbing the lockbox. Someone yanked a drawer full of invoices, then swore and dropped it. It didn't feel like a movie. No yelling, no gunshots, just chaos in short bursts. Boots, zippers, grunts. The limp guy stepped over me twice. The second time, he nudged my leg with his boot hard, like checking if I was done. I didn't move. I let them think I was out cold. They were gone in under 10 minutes. I heard the front door slam, heard the stairwell door bang below that. Then nothing. Just my own heartbeat in my ears and the taste of blood on my teeth. I tried to sit up. Couldn't. My hand reached for the phone on the coffee table. Missed. I slid sideways again. Somewhere in the fog, I saw a flashlight blink once, then disappear. I wasn't sure if I imagined it. The ceiling buzzed like it hated its job. That was the first thing I noticed. Then came the clean sheet smell and the steady beep that let me know I wasn't done yet. My side ached like fire, like someone had jammed a crowbar through me and changed their mind halfway in. A calm voice said, "Don't move too much. You're lucky." I turned my head slow. Male, mid-40s, scrubs, steady tone. "Puncture didn't hit anything vital," he continued. "Surgeons cleaned it up fast. You'll be sore, but clean work." I swallowed, throat raw. "Did I call 911? He shook his head. "Someone called from your phone. Just gave your address and hung up. No name. But it saved you minutes that mattered." I blinked against the light. The hum kept going. "There was a second lucky break," the doctor added. "Your blood type is AB negative. Not a lot of people walk around with that." "Yeah, I know." The hospital had just enough on hand to cover the operation, but someone showed up anyway, asked if you were alive, then signed paperwork to donate, replace what we used. That yanked me more awake than anything else had so far. He watched my face. "Look, compatibility doesn't prove relation, but with a rare type like yours, it's not the worst idea to check your family history." "I'm an only child," I said automatically. He didn't argue, just gave me a non-committal shrug, the kind men give when the math doesn't line up and they don't want to push. "He was arrested about an hour later," the doctor said. "Separate warrant. Name's Usher Davis." That hit like a bottle to the teeth. Davis. I knew it from Christina's texts, the way she never said it unless she had to. I stared at the blank ceiling while the rest clicked into place. The guy who helped set up the robbery might have also saved my life. Later, when I opened my eyes again, Christina was in the chair next to me. Her coat was still on. She looked like she hadn't slept, like her whole body was holding its breath. She didn't speak until I looked straight at her. "It was Usher's idea," she said. "The robbery. He thought you were flexing. He thought no one gives help without strings. He wanted to teach you a lesson." My jaw tightened, but I didn't speak. Not yet. She kept going. "The guy he pulled in, the one who ran the crew, is the kind of man who doesn't like loose ends. When things got messy and you went down, Usher panicked. Told them you were already gone. Said the place was a bust." I stared at her, still quiet. "He left with them," she said. "But he came back. I don't know why. Maybe he didn't believe it. Maybe he just needed to check for himself." She looked down at her hands. "He found you still breathing. Called 911 from your phone. Didn't leave a name. Then went to the hospital. Gave blood. Told the nurse, 'A debt's a debt.' That's what he said." Her voice broke, just a little. Nobody's ever done that for him before. I didn't answer. Didn't curse her out. Just let the silence stretch while the angry part of me did math. What I could charge him with. What I could file. What I could strip away. Then came the other part, uglier in its own way. The part that hates unfinished debt. That wants to understand why someone would do both. Bleed you and save you. The doctor came back that night. He checked my vitals, asked about pain, then circled back to the blood type. "Donor paperwork lined up," he said. "Compatible. AB negative's rare enough that we log everything twice." I nodded. He looked at me longer than he had to. "You know there's a photo in the hallway? Outside the staff lounge. From a Red Cross drive. 10, maybe 11 years back." "What about it?" He scratched his jaw. "Guy in it looks a lot like you. Just rougher. Beard. Jacket. A few people asked if it was you. I said no. But now I'm not sure." He didn't press. Just walked out. The next day I asked to see my parents. In the meantime, I turned to Christina. She was still in the corner, eyes half closed like she'd been expecting me to explode and didn't know how to handle the delay. "You need to go home," I told her. "Get Connor to his checkup. Stop apologizing." She opened her mouth to argue. "Not right now," I cut her off. "We'll talk when it makes sense. Not now." She nodded, pulled her coat tighter and left without another word. I stayed behind in that room alone, watching the patterns on the ceiling tile. The dots didn't move, but I counted them anyway. I made up my mind right there. I'd handle this like I handle everything. Step by step. Verify the facts. Move the least risky piece first. No sudden moves. No one dies if I can help it. And if the past decided to walk through my front door dressed in my blood type, then I'd deal with that too. I checked myself out of the hospital on day 6, not day 8 like they wanted. I didn't wait on clearance or sign off. I got dressed slow, winced through it, and called a car to Long Island. When I got to my folks' place, I didn't even sit down. I walked straight into the garage where the old paint cans and broken holiday lights live, and opened the crate where my dad keeps boxes of Polaroids he never throws out. He walked in behind me, wiping his hands on a towel like he thought this was about oil changes. "Dad," I said, already flipping through a stack, "you ever have another kid?" He froze mid-step. My mom was behind him a few seconds later, and she went stiff like someone had clicked a switch in her neck. "No," she said fast, too fast. My dad stared at the cement floor for a while, then scratched behind his ear like he was trying to buy time from the wall. "There was a girl," he said, "back in Queens. Her name was Denise." He paused, then added, "She left. Said I wasn't city enough. Might have been pregnant. I wouldn't know. Never heard from her again." I nodded once and went back to the box. They didn't ask why I was digging. Later that afternoon, he was out in the driveway smoking like he used to do before Mom started pretending she hated the habit. I stayed in the garage, still flipping, when I hit a photo that stopped me cold. My dad was leaning against a pole outside some bar in Woodside, arm around a woman with hard cheekbones and eyes that didn't blink. She looked like Usher. That was enough. Not a blood test, not a signature, but enough for me to put a thumbtack in the timeline and accept that blood finds its way back to the same door, invited or not. I called Isabel Mercado the next morning. She was the kind of lawyer you hired when you wanted someone with no time for theater. Her shoes clicked loud. Her emails were short. She took one look at the case, skimmed the report, and said, "He's not going to walk unless someone credible stands up for him." I said, "He helped save my life." She raised an eyebrow. "That'll work." In court, Usher looked worn down, but stood taller than I expected. He pled to burglary, took full weight for the setup, denied intent to kill, which I knew was true because if he'd wanted me gone, I wouldn't be standing. The DA came in hot, wanted to bury him, pushed hard on the repeat offender angle, called it organized crime, even though the crew boss was the only one with a real record. Isabel called me to the stand. I told the truth. Said the call to 911 came from my phone. Said a man donated rare blood on site that matched mine. Said he stayed long enough to make sure I didn't crash. Then I looked Usher straight in the face and said it loud enough for the whole room. "You did one right thing, do another." The judge watched him like a hawk. Everyone held their breath. Then the sentence landed. Time served. 5 years probation. Mandatory rehab and anger management. Strict curfew. Job placement. The crew boss got a multi-year hit and a lifetime bar from logistics permits. Justice doesn't balance clean, but that day, it leaned just enough. Outside the courthouse, gray sky pressing low, Usher lit a cigarette with fingers that shook a little. He looked at me like he wasn't sure which version of me he was facing. "I can lift," he said, "but I can't wear a tie." I cracked half a smile. "I don't need a tie. I need someone who'll show up and not let me down." He nodded once. Didn't offer thanks. I didn't want it. "I'm setting up a logistics course through Marlin from Antwerp," I told him. "You start there, then we see." He looked down at his hands, then over at Christina, who stood off to the side, holding Connor like she was afraid the moment would shift if she breathed wrong. I said, "You lie once, you're done. You steal, you're done. You show up drunk, you're done." He didn't flinch. "I'll try." We shook hands. That was it. No hugs, no big speeches, just a dry handshake on concrete. A few months later, he was running the warehouse clock better than anyone I'd had in 5 years. He showed up early, stayed late, Put out 2 fires before they made it to my desk. Didn't talk much. Didn't miss a step. I told my parents about the blood type thing one night while we sat in their kitchen. Mom didn't say anything at first. She just put her arms around me and held on longer than usual. Dad stared past me like he was seeing both the past and the version of himself he almost became. He didn't ask for proof. He didn't need to. No one said, "Brother, you don't have to say it when the blood already knows." That night, I went home to my place in Brooklyn. First time I'd slept in my bed in weeks without waking up to the ghost of a hospital light in my eyes. No alarms, no sirens, just the hum of the fridge and the tea kettle I still hadn't replaced. That kind of quiet, that's peace in my language. Work crawled at first. Nothing broke, but nothing moved easy either. I watched orders stall, vendors hesitate, even Marlon from Antwerp take 2 days to answer a simple pricing question. I didn't blame them. Word gets around. The moment someone smells blood, they test the waters. Usher showed up early, stayed late, missed a few quiz answers in the logistics training, but he kept showing up. That mattered more. I paired him with Marlon directly, got him on inventory control so he'd learn SKUs before he learned politics. Marlon didn't love it, but he respected schedules. Usher matched him, beat for beat. I went back to Colombia twice, once for billing updates, once to sign authorization for surgical access. The day of Connor's operation, I sat in a hallway that smelled like bleach and vending machine coffee, flipping through a report on export duties for uncut pearls, just to give my hands something to do. 4 hours in, the surgeon walked out, mask still hanging from one ear, and said the words I didn't know I needed. Procedure went as planned. Strong prognosis. I nodded. Didn't trust my voice. Just nodded. That night I set up the Bella Lane Fund. Simple name. Quiet purpose. Medical or travel assistance for foster kids who got kicked in the teeth by life and didn't have a parent left to fight for them. No big press. No speech. Just a $50,000 wire and a signed charter. I stapled the bank receipt to the back of the folder and filed it under non-negotiables. Back at the office, Darren Cole kept circling. He didn't hit me direct. Too slippery for that. But 2 vendors said he was floating a story that I'd moved stones through a flagged buyer. Nothing direct, just smoke. Jealousy always carries the stink of desperation. But this one had teeth. A compliance officer from the bank called me on a Thursday. Said they needed more documentation on a Hong Kong to Dubai reroute. I handed it over same day. Then I bookmarked every name who'd accessed the shipment folder. Darren wasn't subtle, but he wasn't invisible either. Christina dropped by once with Connor, now stitched and smiling like a kid who didn't understand just how close he'd come. He handed me a drawing, crayon, folded, bent at the corners, a tiger and a panda. He said, "Mom said this is you and Auntie Bella." I didn't say anything, just took it and slipped it into my side drawer. Not the center one. That felt too exposed. A week later, Usher brought me a photo from an old album. Denise, his mom, standing next to a guy in a zip-up jacket with a slouch in his stance that matched my father's exactly. It wasn't proof, but it didn't need to be. We both looked at it, then looked away. "You want to run a test?" he asked. "No," I said. "We'll let the ghosts sleep." He nodded once. That was the last we spoke of it. By late summer, we were scouting a second showroom space in Long Island City. Nothing flashy, just a clean front, 3-room layout, secure drop door, and decent walk-in access. I made the usual list: lease terms, alarm systems, insurance riders. I told myself not to work 7 days in a row. Didn't always listen, but I said it out loud, and that counted for something. Some nights I still talked to Bella, quietly, usually while rinsing the kettle. I'd tell her about Connor's crayon, about Usher hitting quota 3 weeks in a row, about the new fund, and how I'd kept her name off the public paperwork like she would have wanted. I told her I'd been sleeping most nights, that I was trying. I asked her if she'd hate me for trying again. I waited, but she didn't answer. She never did. Late September, I drove to the Nutley Cemetery with a small wrap of ranunculus and thistle. She always said thistle made the soft flowers feel tougher. I knelt. Didn't say much. Just told her about the fund. Left the wrap. Stood up and walked away feeling settled, not fixed. The next morning, janitorial staff for the new showroom bailed. Agency said their guy got reassigned. I didn't argue. I just told them to send someone else for the night shift and hung up. That evening, just before closing, a woman showed up. Tall, dark hair pulled back, plain shirt, tool bag slung over one shoulder. "Violet Powell," she said, "here for the cleaning shift." She didn't ask questions, didn't offer a story, just asked where to start. I pointed to the back storage and said, "Anywhere you want, long as it ends with the front looking better than it did." 30 minutes in, I heard a loud click, then silence. I walked to the break room door and found her crouched by the exit, tightening the hinge with a small socket wrench. "That thing's been loose for a week," I said. She looked up, deadpan. "I noticed. You got a lot of people pretending not to." Then she went back to work. Violet didn't talk much the first few days, but when she did, it was straight, no filler. She was 26, ran night shifts in an office complex off Queens Boulevard, took the Long Island City job because the timing fit her bus schedule. She looked at me like I was just another nameplate, which I liked. Gave her instructions. She nodded once and got to it. No lip, no flinch. The kind of worker who doesn't ask twice unless it matters. 1 week in, she knocked on my door around noon. I was mid-call with Antwerp and waved her in, expecting a mop issue or a broken fixture. Instead, she stepped in like she meant it, eyes sharp, phone in hand. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I'm not sure how you'll take it." I ended the call and gave her the floor. She said she'd been cleaning the small conference room the night before. Heard voices. 2 guys whispering, low but sloppy. They didn't see her. Said something about a coal plan, a setup meant to rattle my bank and wedge a client loose. She hit record when she realized they weren't just blowing smoke. 1 minute of audio, names, dates, reference to a fake sanctions alert sent through a burner domain targeting the bank's AML filters. She handed me the phone, then said something that caught me hard. "I'm sorry for hearing it. I know most people treat cleaners like furniture." I played the clip. Clean quality. 2 voices. One of them laughing while he said, "Just drop the link and wait. They'll freeze the whole chain. Guy'll panic, clients'll scatter. Darren said it works." My jaw set. The names were easy. 2 temps from a service we'd tested twice. One had been at a trade show Darren Cole spoke at 6 months back. All the dots connected too clean to ignore. I called Isabel Mercado. She barely said hello before asking what I had. I forwarded the audio, gave her the folder, and let her run it to legal. We sent it to the bank's internal security lead. I ate the early cancellation fee on a Dubai reroute that afternoon, just to keep the risk low. Then I pulled both temps into the office with HR. I didn't yell, didn't have to. I just asked them to explain the voices in the recording. People usually tell on themselves when they're caught. They did. That night, I sat at my desk longer than usual and made a new list. Not of risks, not of routes, just names. People who save your life in ways that don't show up in a blood test or medical chart. The guy who calls 911 from your phone. The kid who draws you a tiger. The woman who hears what you missed and doesn't pretend she didn't. The next night I caught Violet before she left, asked if she had 10 minutes for coffee across the street. She hesitated. I saw it happen. Shoulders stiffen, eyes scan for a catch. I get it. A man with gray hair and a nice watch asking for just a cup is usually lying. So I said, "No pressure. Doesn't mean anything. I just want to say thank you." She nodded slow. 1 cup. We sat in a booth with cracked vinyl and weak lighting. Talked about siblings. She helped raise her younger sister. Took night classes before her mom got sick. Said she didn't want anything from me except clean hours and no drama. "You've got both," I said. far as I can promise. A week later, after the bank closed the file and Darren's name got flagged back at him, I asked Violet to dinner. But I didn't lead with the invitation. I said, "I'm not trying to replace a ghost. I just need to say that out loud so I'm not a coward." She didn't blink. "I'm not a replacement. I wouldn't try to be." Then she added, "I don't do fancy." So we went to a diner in Astoria, split a slice of pie, talked about what we wanted 5 years from now and what we were afraid we'd never get. I didn't sleep great that night. Not because of her. Because new things make old bones jumpy. Especially ones that don't come with disclaimers or secret codes. 2 months later, I told her the worst of my drunk season. The floor sleeping. The rehab. The letter I answered like a fool. And I told her the best of Bella. She nodded once, didn't ask for more. She said, "I don't need a monument in the house. I need a man who shows up when he says he will." I said, "I can do that. Most days." The next 12 months didn't move fast. They moved right. The kind of right that stays even when the lights are off. Darren's fallout landed mid-February. We had one more court date. I sat in the back row, clean shirt, arms crossed. The bank's security lead laid it out plain. Our controls flagged a fake sanctions ping tied to a third-party burner. The judge barely blinked. Sometimes you let the system do what it's built for. That day, it actually did. Usher had a smaller hearing a week later, final piece of his wrap-up. He took the mic, not looking at anyone at first, stared down at his shoes like they owed him answers. He walked the judge through what happened, his fault, his choices, then said one more thing. He said, "A man saved my son and hired me after I robbed him. I won't waste either." I didn't flinch. Neither did the judge. When they called me up, I kept it tight. I would have died from blood loss in my own office if a transfusion hadn't landed fast. A man with no reason to help chose to show up. I don't forget things like that. Then I turned to Usher and added, "Thank you." Whole room went still. Shouldn't be rare for men to thank each other straight, but it still is. We left that building, didn't talk about the hearing. Drove straight to my parents' place for a barbecue that landed somewhere between awkward and warm. One of those days where everyone knows something but doesn't say it. Dad pulled out old music. Usher fixed a jammed storm door without being asked. Mom brought out a second plate like it meant nothing. That was the whole conversation. It worked. Violet kept cleaning at night until April, then stepped into a part-time vendor management role. She didn't miss the mop, but she said it covered tuition for 1 semester. And I respected that more than I can say. No shortcuts, no ego. I proposed after we closed a strong quarter. No flash. Just takeout at the kitchen counter, a ring in a small box, and me saying, "I'm not trying to go back. I'm trying to go forward." She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Then don't stop showing up." We got married at City Hall. Just us, Connor in a tiny blazer, and Usher fidgeting with his tie like it might bite him. After, we ate cupcakes in the break room. No photographer, no hashtags, just paper plates and people who mattered. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, Violet took my hand, pressed it low on her belly, and said, "Due in June." I stood there like I'd been hit with a freight train full of helium. Then I laughed, the kind that grabs your ribs and doesn't ask for permission. First time I'd laughed like that since I turned 30. Loud, messy, free. A week later, I drove to Nutley with ranunculus and thistle wrapped in butcher paper. I knelt, told Bella the truth. Connor's okay, Usher's working, Violet's my wife. I'm going to be a dad. I said I hoped she wasn't mad about me moving on. I didn't wait for a sign, didn't need one. When I got home, I made tea in the old kettle, the one she gave me. I kept our old code words in my head. Dice on a string, Tuesday roses, panda and tiger. They still live there, quiet. But I kept my promises more. Handle what's mine, help who I can, forgive when it's earned. I'm not cured, not polished or reborn, but I'm here. And for the man I used to be, that's worth more than I ever knew. Before we wrap this up, let me throw something real at you. If you were in Nate's shoes, would you give someone a second chance after they nearly wrecked your life but later saved it? If you've got hype, tap it now to push this story further, and make sure you hit subscribe and like because it helps more than you think. Drop a comment too, even a simple good story or your take on it. I'm listening. Love you guys.